Welcome back to the latest edition of Ecommerce Agency Wisdom, where I'm joined by the one and only Nathan Lomax, co-founder of Quickfire Digital. And today he is going to share what I wish I knew about moderation. I think that's roughly the working title. We're going to talk about moderation, quality versus quantity. So over to you, Nathan.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that looking back, naturally I'm a character of excess, and everything I do is to excess, whether you're at the bar ordering drinks, whether you're going out and ordering food, whether you're having conversations. I remember in lockdown, the principle I learned was 50 conversations every month, but not me. I decided to do 400 conversations every month, and we decided to launch an events business alongside Quickfire. And rather than doing 3 events, we did 45 events. And I think the thing is, I was so desperate to get the word out there and to build the brand and to be liked, if I'm honest. Like you end up just trying to spread yourself so thin, and I wish someone had just grabbed me by the scruff of the neck at that point and said, you don't need to do the volume.
I did try to grab you by the scruff of the neck multiple times, but anyway, so back to you.
Okay, so I wish more people had grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and tried to warn me, right? Because what you realize is that it's quality over quantity, and it doesn't matter how many people try and tell you. I genuinely think, joking aside, you need to learn it for yourself and you need to see it firsthand. The amount of conversations, the amount of partnerships, the amount of, whether it be tech partners, agency partners, whatever it is, and you just have an initial conversation, and there comes a point where I talk about feeding versus being fed, right? And you want to strike that balance. And I'm all for the plus equals minus and mentoring and supporting others. And absolutely. And that's what this amazing community is all about. But at the same time, there comes a tipping point where people just take the piss, right? And if you've gone too far and you're like, actually, okay, I'm feeding. I'm pretty bloody hungry, but I'm still feeding. And you're like, actually, I need something back here. And I think if I'm really critical, now I'm getting maybe a bit more cynical, maybe older. I don't know what it is. The agency's maturing. Like, I just find that whenever I'm doing an activity now, it's like, how can you go all in on it versus surface level? And even if I look at our marketing activity, right? So I think, okay, Quickfire does an unbelievable amount of content generation. Okay, so we do an awful lot of white papers, micro papers, guides, you name it. We do tons of it. However, do we do tons of it? So we do all the sectors, we do all the service offerings. So here's how to improve your CRO or your AOV and all those other acronyms. Amazing. But actually, do we go super deep and think, well, how are we going to get this in front of the right people? Right? How are we going to slice it and dice it and turn it into more content? How are we going to actually really make this asset sweat as hard as it can? But what we do is we get new and shiny and we go and chase the next one. Oh, fantastic. We finished average order value. Now let's go and do lifetime value. And we go and get more partners involved and agencies, etc. And this one, oh, Nate's posting it on his LinkedIn once. That's it. End of campaign. Right. And I wish someone had told me I'd actually like stop the volume and go deep. Now, the challenge is for a long time, you've been chasing revenue, you've been chasing agency growth, etc. And it's like, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And you don't know what bit is to stop. And so you're so worried about stopping something and it's going to stop the whole agency, etc. You just keep going. But then you come to some kind of life event or something and you're forced to slow down, whether that be through health or whether that be through other circumstances, etc. And for me, it was launching another brand with my partner. And you just go, actually, like, now I've had a bit of a time to step off the horse and think about it. I go, why on earth are we doing all this content? Like, how many SQLs and MQLs are we actually? And we actually, if you think about an agency of 3 million quid, 35 people, you would think it nailed what an MQL looks like and what an SQL looks like. The reality is we're still discussing it, right? We're still discussing it because we're going, well, is that an MQL? Oh, we had 50 downloads to the latest migration guide. Brilliant. How many of those are an SQL? Don't know, right? And what happens is they sit in a spreadsheet, the ops sit in a spreadsheet, and nothing happens with them. And so this is the thing. I wish that I'd known to go deeper with it, to squeeze every ounce of juice off that opportunity, and then move on to the next one. You can appeal that in any walk of life. So you're like, okay, parking content to one side, let's look at partnerships. How many SEO partners have we got? How many PPC partners have we got? How many email partners have we got? Would we be better? For sure, there's different price points and there's different capabilities and different platforms. But actually, we've got one for this size, we've got one for this size, we've got one for this size. And these are generally the best people for the job that we believe that we've met. Do we need 9 PPC partners that all do campaigns for $2,000 a month? No, because what happens is then you don't go deep enough with them. You're not front and center with them, and you spend your time having ad hoc piecemeal conversations, and you get nowhere. And actually, that ability to push back and go, look, I want to be really honest with you. If we want a genuine partnership, let's both put time and energy into it. Let's not just go and have a nice lunch and then let's not speak for 12 months. If we're going to do it, let's have some intentionality about it. And I know you and I already spoke about intentionality last year. And I think that's so important, is going deeper with the activity and being intentional about what you're doing rather than this spray and pray volume. Now, I guess caveat all of that by most conversations I have will be followed up by bloody hell, you're everywhere. Well, yeah, I get that. And I get the need for touch points and everything else. But could we achieve that in half the amount of time if we were just playing a little bit smarter? Think of something like remarketing, right? We drive traffic to a campaign. So we drive brands to sign up to a white paper download. Do we do any remarketing whatsoever? No. So we're not squeezing every op. We're just being a little bit complacent. And so if I think of things outside of that side, even in the agency as a whole, and you go, okay, are we better? If we look at how we work with consultants, if we look at my life at home, like everything is about volume and breadth rather than depth. And I think that is a massive takeaway for anyone looking to start an agency, growing an agency, scaling an agency. Like, just think how you can be more intentional and go far deeper with your conversations, with your activities, etc. I was just thinking earlier, actually, just in terms of this this death to your ego, and you and I just spoke about this just before we came on. And I think the other thing is, when you're trying to build a personal brand, I see a lot in agency land right now about personal brand. Okay, and I'm not for one moment discrediting it or saying you shouldn't do it, etc. What I would say is it's not right for everybody, but at the same time, you're trying to balance two things. For me, selfishly, that does appeal to me, and I am trying to build a Nathan Lomax brand as well as a Quickfire brand, and I think so. Trying to balance moderation versus you just naturally get tons of opportunities. So people are like, oh, we really want to do a webinar. We really want to do this bit of content. Can we do a LinkedIn live? Can we do a white paper? Can you contribute on that? And I'm terrible at saying no, like terrible. So I'm like, yeah, of course I will. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that. Last night I'm up to like 11 o'clock at night. There's got to have some boundaries. And I think a byproduct of being excessive is you lack boundaries to know when you're on and when you're off. And then you just burn yourself out, right? And then you're knackered and then you begin to resent it. And I think that's the thing I'm starting to realize more is if you pull it all back, why are we even doing this in the first place? Like, why did we set the agency up? For me, one of the big things was time freedom.
Yeah, but it's the biggest myth of being an entrepreneur.
Oh,
the biggest myth of being an
absolutely.
entrepreneur is that you can control your schedule, but the reality is that's the complete opposite.
Exactly right. The business controls my schedule. It tells me where to go, when to go. Weirdly, I had a nightmare just before Christmas, and it was around my diary moving slots. Like, what a bizarre thing for someone to. But that would be my worst nightmare. Is my diary just gets all jumbled up and disaster. So yeah, I think again, if I was looking at it, I'd have more focused time. I can be more productive. Like when someone comes to a call and then can't make a call and cancels a call or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." Sometimes it's bloody amazing. I've got this time that I just didn't expect, and I can be so productive. Whereas actually, if I had free time and headspace and I was thinking, and I was able to just grab a drink or go take the dog out or whatever, but instead I'm like, right, the day starts at 8, it finishes at 7, and it's calls every half an hour, and you get up if you need the toilet, and that's about it. And you go, well, and they go, cool, I've been productive today. Well, have you been that productive? Or could you have been more productive if you didn't have that and you had white space? And I think that for me is something I'm beginning to learn is I need to be better at, okay, so someone wants to call about the agency. I don't want to discredit them. I still want to look at the opportunity, but then can you start to delegate? And I think the sooner you can get a team around you that says, oh, you want to talk partnerships or events or whatever, there's Rose, go and have a chat to her. Oh, you want to talk new business, you want to talk sales, maybe have a chat to Dan. Like, have a chat to these people and keep your diary as free as possible so you can think. And that to me is something that I've learned the hard way. I would say I've had so many conversations.
You're learning the hard way.
Learning. Yeah,
Learning
still
the
haven't
hard
learned.
way.
Learning.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
definitely.
Think, yeah, and even we before we got on the call and we discussed this, that we talked about like moderation and quality versus quantity. But really what I'm hearing from this is about intentionality, because I think that's the bigger picture. Quality over quantity if you're not intentional. So there's three things I actually wrote down here when you were talking, which I thought was super interesting. The first thing that you spoke about, um, being everywhere all the time. And they have this thing that they say in business that when you're getting started, you're all things to all people. And you kind of have to be, right? At the start, you have to be, for me, when I started the business, do you need a retainer built? Do you need your sales process defined? Do you need your delivery process? Do you need to hire? Do you need operations? Okay, what is it that we're doing? So all things to all people. And then you're something to all people. And then you're something to some people. And real success is moving up the ladder, and you go from being like that, and that's really niching. So for the businesses or the entrepreneurs or the agencies that stay in that all things to all people, there's so many people. That's such a red ocean. There's so many people being added into that pool all the time. So at some stage you need to say, okay, all things to all people, not doing that anymore. So going to all of the events, speaking to all of the people, speaking to all the partners. Okay, that's a beginner's game. That's kind of where you earn your stripes. I'm going to elevate, and I'm going to be something to all people. And then ideally, what you should aim for is to be something to some people. And I think the people that can skip as many of those steps and get to the end game and say, do you know what? I'm going to be this resource for this profile of people. So I'm going to be the number one Shopify Plus agency for food and bev brands in the subscription space. It means that your work that you have to do is more targeted. Potentially it's harder because you have to say no to more people, but it's way more targeted. So the people you have coming in. So that was the first thing. All things to all people, something to all people, and then something to some people.
It takes a lot of courage though, Rach, to do that. And I think that's the one thing I kind of, again, learning the hard way is that yes, you can niche, and I absolutely wish I'd niche sooner. The challenge is when the reality is, right, you've got bills to pay, you've got lights to keep on, you've got mortgages to pay, etc., etc. So it's like,
I agree with that, and I think that's what I always hear from businesses. I agree fundamentally that you don't say no to money when you don't have the option. I also know firsthand that I intentionally set my business at the very start that I am going to carve a path for myself that was exclusively for e-commerce agencies that nobody else was doing and focusing in that space. So it meant that I had to say no to more than I said yes. But the people that I said yes to, the impact was so much greater. So yes, I had to turn away money. Yes, it meant that it took longer to get off the ground. But when it hit, it was a home run. And it meant that when I started to build this community, which is now 20,000 agencies internationally, when you're all together, it's so much more valuable because you know yourself, you're involved and host lots of agency lunches, and there'll be times or agency events. And there'll be lots of times when there's agencies of all walks of life. And whilst there's value in that, it doesn't compare to being in a room of people that are also running Shopify Plus agencies going through the same thing as you at the same stage or a little bit further ahead of you. It's totally different. So I would say yes. The second thing to that I would say, which you mentioned earlier, is defining boundaries and knowing what to say no to. And again, it is cliched, like knowing what to say no is more important than knowing what to say yes. For me personally, that all comes down to vision. And I think that being in reactive mode, where you're bouncing from call to call to call to call to meeting to conversation to commitment, you get so reactive that you lose sight of the vision. And as a person for your life, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a partner, I think it's really essential to invest in really defining what your vision is. So it means that when I'm having conversations, there's so much opportunity. They've got an expression specifically here in the Canary Islands in Spanish, and the expression is the money's on the street. The opportunity is everywhere. If I know that this is the direction I'm going, if I'm going to be hiking up Mount Kilimanjaro, and I know that this is my route, and somebody comes along like, Jesus, we're going to be going out camping here. And I'm like, okay, I'm going there. You guys are going there. Sounds exciting. It's not on my route. And I think so many people lose sight of like, what is my vision? And once you have confidence in what your vision and direction is, it's easier for you to say, sounds amazing. I know somebody who'd really appreciate that opportunity. Doesn't align right now with what I'm focused on. So that's the second thing. The third thing, which was super interesting, was this idea of like doing lots of stuff. And there's like Denzel Washington is one of my favorite public speakers. I think he's so wise, and I think that like his views on life are super interesting. And then a famous talk that you can find on YouTube, and basically the tagline is, "Don't mistake movement with progress." And for me, that I'm a similar personality to you, where I have a ferocious appetite for everything: life, potatoes, business, friendships, music, whatever it is. I've always had a ferocious appetite. I've always had this like burning. Everybody that knows me, like, where do you get your energy from? I will always say potatoes. Potatoes and God. That's where my energy comes from. But the reality is, it is something that you have to channel. And sometimes we get so, again, maybe this is ego, sometimes we get so blinded by all of the movement. And then when you take a wee step back, you're like, I've actually just been running in circles for years. So the
Yeah.
movement doesn't necessarily mean that you're making any progress. And for me, I would rather take less steps and move forward than take infinitely more and just chase my tail. And in business, I think we're so caught up in this reactive movement at the expense of progress. And that's why people plateau and they get disheartened and they get pissed off. And I don't want to do this anymore. People leave jobs, people leave companies. And again, all of this ties in together. Having your vision helps you with the progress and helps you avoid movement. Still being intentional about moving from all things to all people to something to some people, like all of that, for me, ultimately comes back to knowing what your goal is, what your vision is, which direction you're going, and then your discernment in assessing all the opportunities around you. However, I will say to your credit, of the chaos at the start is a necessary part of creating that kinetic energy to get the ball rolling. It's
Yeah,
knowing
definitely.
when to let that part of the rocket ship drop away and then let the more smarter intentional bit then head to wherever it's going. That's the difference.
Absolutely. And there's definitely another end to the spectrum, which is those that are not seeing the opportunities and they're simply not doing the activity. So it's like, well, how do you find the balance between loads of opportunities, but you're working yourself into the ground versus no opportunities and you're not leaving your sofa? Where's that middle ground that goes, okay, I'm going to be super intentional about the activities I go to, the people I speak to, the outcomes I'm going to try and achieve, and I'm going to proactively go after that stuff. And finding that balance is the absolute trick and something I wish I knew a long time ago.